Welcome back, everyone. Um, Up next, we've got Mark Savage. He's a Marine Corps veteran, and he's been in the journeyman electronics cable industry for about the last 20 years. He's actually got a full presentation prepared for y'all. So without further ado, I will let him jump on into it. Welcome, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Val. Appreciate that. Hello to everybody out there. I know I'm going to be a little bit different than what you guys and girls are used to. So I'm actually not a hiring entity at the current moment. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give you guys details or some information about the industry that I actually work in because it's a very good fit for prior military. So the company that I own, as you can see here, I have just about 10 or 11 slides to walk through so you have a visual. The company that I own right up here is called DeadBreak. We are an underground medium voltage electrical cable splicing and consulting. We train and consult people on how to build underground power lines. So I'm going to walk you through basically the whole industry that we have. And at the end, we'll have some questions and answers and everything like that. So just hold your questions to the end if you don't mind. So, walk you through my experience. As Val said right here, I was in the Marine Corps a long time ago. I went in at 17, and it was 1992 was when I entered. And if my memory is correct, I originally had gone in open contract because I left for boot camp a little bit early. So the I was given, I believe 3051 was my MOS. I'm not 100% positive about warehousing, but I actually never did that job. But it was good skill set for something that I needed in the future. Um, so once I left all my training, I actually went back to Paris Island. I was a weapons instructor at Marine Corps Recruit Depot. And I trained recruits how to shoot. So if you guys were out there, that was one of the jobs I did. I did that for 3 years. Then I didn't join the Marine Corps to just sit on the East Coast. Obviously, from my accent, you can probably tell from the Northeast. But then I put in some orders and I went over to mainland Japan. I was working for Mag 12 in Iwakuni. And that's when I actually redid the ASVAB and changed my job to 5711, which is an NBC. So once I left Japan, I went to Alabama and did the 3 month training there. And then I went over to Camp Pendleton, California. So I was with First FSSG at Camp Pendleton, California. I went out on pumps with MSSG 11. And while I was with the FSSG, when I came back, I was a platoon sergeant for about 65 Marines that I had underneath me. And then after that, I ended up getting out. Reason I ended up getting out is I put in orders for the drill field. I wanted to be a drill instructor, and I got screened for recruiting duty. And I didn't end up going to my orders for recruiting duty, so I ended up getting out and went into the reserves in Worcester, Massachusetts. So that's a little bit about my military career. Um, Now about me personally, and this will all make sense when we get a little bit further, but just so you have some background. So I'm an actual IBEW union member. So that stands for International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Okay. I've also worked for the BUW, Brotherhood of Utility Workers, and the UWUA, Utility Workers United America. So I've been a union member for 25 years, and not that the non-union is any worse off. It's just that was the opportunities that I was presented when I started this industry. So yeah, that's a little bit off. Now that it's 2026, this is my 25th year, and I've worked for multiple utility companies and Star National Grid in Florida Power and Light. While I was there, I was an apprentice instructor, trainer. I trained on switching instructing and all that. And like I said, we'll get into these details later. Then I worked for the largest contractor in the world. It's a company called Quanta. They own 352 companies worldwide. But I worked for them in the training facility down in LaGrange, Texas. And the reason why that's going to be significant for everyone is at the end, I'm going to introduce you guys to a program. It's called the VEET program, Veterans Electrical Entry Program, which is something that you guys may be interested in looking into. And if you did, Quanta is a company that hosts a pre-apprenticeship for overhead, and that's a good way to go. So I can get you information on that too. And finally, for myself, I'm a journeyman cable splicer and I'm a journeyman lineman. So I'm dual ticketed. That what that means to everybody in the room is I'm an underground lineman and I'm an overhead lineman. So I have two union tickets for both of those apprenticeships. So the journeyman lineman apprenticeship is a 4-year apprenticeship. The cable splicer apprenticeship is a 3-year, 9-month apprenticeship. I was fortunate to be able to be fast tracked into the journeyman lineman because I had already done the 3.5-year or 3-year, 9-month apprenticeship. That I was fast tracked into the journeyman lineman because a lot of those classes overlap. So that's a little bit of my history. What I want to show you guys here is this is where your employment opportunities would come into. Okay, so there are 5 different opportunities that you can look into if you're interested in getting into this field. So the first one that we'll talk about is a utility company. That's my background. Like I told you, everybody, I came from the utility company. So you have your national grids, your Eversources, San Diego Gas and Electric, Pacific Power. Depending on where you are in the United States, whatever state that you're in has some sort of utility company. So that is a publicly owned and traded company. That's the difference between a utility and then basically co-ops and municipalities. So utility companies are really good. It's very structured. You have great benefits. You don't worry about whether you're going to have a job tomorrow. It's very, very steady. And then every year you have a pay increase to get in. All those are usually contracted under some sort of union contract. So you have a structured, you know, increase in pay and guidelines. What you don't have for that, if you go over to the contractors, okay, that's same concept, but now you're a contractor working for one of those utility companies. All right. Now, for the contractors, the problem with that is if they don't have work for National Grid, they're going to go have to find other work that's out there to keep their employees gainfully employed. A lot of times there are slow seasons. November to February right now is the actual slow time for us. So a lot of the contractors will lay off individuals. But what you can do as a contractor is you can storm chase. So you go to the union hall, you sign the books, and if there's a storm that happens, I currently live in Florida. There's a storm that happens up in Connecticut, Maine, Massachusetts, New Jersey, wherever, Florida, hurricanes. You've got the wildfires out in California, whatever it is. If there's a need for contractors to rebuild the power grid, then that's where you would make your money as a contractor. Now, the biggest problem with that is you don't stay home. You have to travel a lot. But that's why this is a good fit for military because most of you out there are used to, being away from home, missing holidays, missing birthdays, anything that's a significant event, you've probably missed something in your life. So that's the contracting side. Now I'll talk to two about the the cooperatives and the municipalities. So the cooperatives, it's privately owned. So you're not trying to do anything to gain money to please the populace. Okay. So they run under different rules and regulations as far as how they operate financially, but structure-wise, it's the exact same as a utility company. You're going to have a union side and a non-union side, which would be management. You're going to have structured, you're going to have benefits, and you're going to have pay that increases each and every year. Those are all over in every state as well. So utility company, cooperatives, in your municipalities, in every state, you'll find each and every one of these. You just have to go dig for them. So the municipalities I have down here, it's Lake Worth Beach. Those are owned. It's its own entity. So if the town decides that they want to take it as their own, so their water, sewer, all of their public works, they want to own that entity themselves. Those are municipalities. So the difference between the three of those as well is if you go from utility to cooperative to municipality is the pay. So utility is going to have the most pay, Co-ops are going to be a little bit less than that, and the municipalities are going to be a little bit less than that because where your funding comes from, right? You're not going to have that much money to be able to go out. And also numbers wise, you're going to look at in a municipality, you may only have 100 live employees, which means overhead underground. Whereas in a utility company, you're going to have 5,000 to 6,000 people. So once again, the pay is different, and how big the numbers are different. Then you go into the non-union. So the non-union is, I put down here Pike, Irby, Maztec, any one of these contractors, okay, that are larger but non-union. So the biggest thing that we're going to go the union contractor to the non-union contractor is the ability to get contracts. So that's really the only difference. The union, their set rates, so whenever they bid on contracts, our hourly rate. So my hourly rate is $65 an hour. So they have to bid that into the contract. Whereas a non-union, they're probably paying someone with my same skill set only about $28 an hour. So those are the differences that you have because the union, we fight for wages. The non-union just basically fights for larger contracts. Okay. And we'll get into some financial stuff here a little bit later. So we'll start off with the underground real quick. So this is mainly what I do. Underground systems. What I put up here on the right side, if that's what it looks like for you guys, you have a manhole. Those are entering confined space. You're working on underground. So if you've been in any major metropolitan city and you don't see overhead lines in that city, you see manhole systems. That's what this is. Okay. So you're working in usually a 10 by 10 concrete box with multiple feeders, whether it's primary, secondary, or anything in that manhole. So it's very dangerous work, but it's a great job. The pay is great and it's very rewarding. In the middle here, that's what we would build a vault. So anytime you have any municipality and you go into a large high rise, they'll have their own electrical room. They maintain their own electrical room, but we have to build the electrical room that feeds them. So if you look in the middle, that's just one of the vaults that we have. And my good friends Jeff is there splicing. But those are the things that we can do. We build vaults as well. So we build manholes and we build vaults. The far left, that's a submersible vault with a network transformer. So what the network transformers do is they tie all of your secondary together so that the city never sees an outage. When that transformer that you're looking at there, if it happens to have a fault, another one, that one will open, another one down the way will close, and the customers never see an outage. So that's the biggest asset to having an underground system is it's not affected by weather. And even those manholes, all of them are filled with water. I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people, but when we pop those tops, we're pumping down a full hole of water. So electricity still runs underwater. It's actually a good insulator as well. So those are a little bit about the underground. Now we'll get into the overhead here. So the overhead you have, I'll go back for this one. In the underground, you can run transmission, distribution, and a couple different systems. So your transmission is anything over 69,000 kilovolts, up to 750, so on and so forth. A little bit more for the overhead than it is for the underground. Our underground systems usually run 135 kilovolts. That's our transmission line. Our distribution is usually 5K, 15K, and 25K. Okay, so those are your primary voltages in distribution. And then I said the network and the throwover systems, the URD, those are all the different systems that we design and that we build in the field. Right? So for your overhead is same concept of what we were doing underground. You're just building these lines overhead. So for these schools, you have to learn how to climb. So you go through a 15-week climbing school. And if you pass your climbing school, then you're accepted into the apprenticeship, and you're going to go ahead and do a 4-year apprenticeship. So the underground apprenticeship is 3 year, 9 month. Your overhead is 4 years. And depending on where you go, there's also going to have to be hours that go along with that. So you're going to work out of a bucket. Most of the time, you won't work out of a bucket right away. That's the concept how you grow. So you're doing a lot of rear of, which is backyard climbing poles and things of that nature. And then the picture that I have in the middle, this is actually me. I'm splicing, so I'm doing underground work out of a bucket 40 feet in the air. So I actually have to do my job in the air as well. So that's where the crossover is, and that's why I'm dual ticketed because it just makes sense to have the knowledge for two. So in the overhead, you can have the transmission and distribution. So your transmission lines, if you're driving down the highway and you look off to the left or right, usually they're on highways, and you'll see those big steel structures or the big wooden structures. Those are transmission lines going from a generation station all the way out to a substation, and then the substation converts that, which we'll talk about in a second, converts that into distribution power. So the overhead, they have two separate departments that they classify themselves as. So transmission, distribution. Your transmission guys they also have the bare hands. So if you guys have ever seen the helicopters when they're flying the guys in and then they drop them off on the structure or they drop them off mid-line or they're sitting on the end of the helicopter fixing these lines in the air. That's the transmission side of the overhead. And then the distribution is the what you guys are seeing right now. So those distribution poles, usually it's a telephone pole because it's shared. So it's a telephone pole. We'll have the communications cable, telecom, fiber, and then it will be secondary up into primary on that. So that's what you've got for your overhead. And then, like I told you guys, we're getting into the substation. So these are the three facets, the major positions that you would be able to look into if you were interested in going to this industry. So the substation takes, like I told you before, it takes generation power. So say your lines come in at 550. It's going to step that, clean up the power, step the power down to go out 13.2, which is your distribution voltage. And then what those transformers are in the field, they step that voltage down to the secondary voltage. So they're stepping your 13.2 down to 122.40, which feeds your house. So it's just a big chain of transformers here. Okay, so the substation side of it, they also do transmission because they have to build these substations. These substations don't just, show up out of somewhere. So as a substation tech, you're setting these transformers, doing all the digging, doing the ground grid, and then building the construction side. So all of these three jobs, there's a construction side to it, a troubleshooting side to it, and then a maintenance side. Just depends on which one you want to get into. So we've also got a couple other jobs that you could potentially take into this industry. We have fleet mechanics. So if anyone that's in there is currently working, your motor T or some sort of engineering, combat engineering, where you're fixing heavy equipment, welding, certain things like that. We have access to fleet mechanics. So fleet mechanics, usually fleet mechanics are on call 24/7. Some places that I've worked have a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week fleet working in the garage because we work 24/7. So we're going to have people there fixing the trucks and fixing our equipment. So that's another avenue that you could get into this if it's something that you're interested in, and they make really good pay as well. So a couple other things that are then once again these are all utility, co-op, municipality. It doesn't matter, union, non-union shops, everything. They're all going to have these jobs. These jobs are all available in whichever path that you go. So you've got to have some sort of engineering. They're going to have to either one, get engineering from the utility company and redo it, or they're going to design it themselves and put that out into the field. And then you have your dispatch. The dispatch is how, when we have trouble calls, if you lose power at your house, that call goes to the trouble center, and then the trouble center feeds us work in the field to go out there and fix it. Now, usually for your dispatch jobs, they need to have some sort of knowledge of the system. If you don't know the switches and certain things, there have been people that have passed the course that have no experience as a journeyman, but it doesn't really help out a lot. So your dispatch is a lot of times a job that you're going to get once you get into the field. These last two that I have here, I think these are the last two that I have here is these are entry level positions. So your meter department, it's changed since I got in. When I entered this industry, it was the meter department was the way to go. We actually physically went out and read the meter. So we would go to each house. We had a lot. When I started, we had it on paper, pencil and paper. We'd write it down, turn it in, then we get submitted. That's how your monthly bill was generated. So once we made those smart meters, okay, we can drive by in a vehicle now and read all of your electric meters and gas meters in a vehicle. So the meter department has kind of gone a little bit on the wayside as far as being able to come into the company and get a position. So what I mean by that is you would enter either customer service or meter department, work there for a couple months, 6 months, waiting for an apprenticeship position to become available. Then you bid that, and then you would leave the meter department and go into an apprenticeship. Okay. So that's why I put down customer service. The biggest thing right now with customer service, if you're taking that route, a lot of them lock you into having a year's experience in customer service because they don't want you to come in 2 or 3 months later and then leave. It just does them no, it just doesn't do them any good to hire someone for a couple months. So they lock you in for a year, and then you can go out and bid on apprenticeship jobs that they have. Okay. So you guys can read this. I'll keep in 1 second. I'll let you guys just take a look at it. But this is what I was talking about right here. This is the mission statement from the VEEP program, Veterans Electrical Entry Program. But this is based off of a skill bridge, same concept, being able to come into this and then they place you in the field. So I'll give you a second to read that. Okay. And like I said, down at the bottom, that's the website that you can go on and find some information. I have a really good friend, former Marine, like I said, works for Quanta, and Quanta does 3 overhead classes a year, and they try to get 60 to 70 VEEP personnel each class, each cohort. So you're looking at let's just say for rough numbers, 150 veterans are going to Quanta and doing the 15-week pre-apprenticeship program and then getting placed into the union somewhere in the United States. So if you guys are interested, girls are interested in anything like that, my name and numbers at the end, by the way. You can reach out to me and I'll put you in contact with my good friend Donnie, who will be able to get you guys some more information and go. Now, when I say this, a lot of the times when we go into this is you need to go and build yourself a profile on a lot of these websites, especially if you're a utility company. Because when a job becomes available, you need to have that profile already readily available. So when the and giving yourself notifications when jobs become available. You would like to apply for each job, your profile is available because there's going to be 2,000, 1,500, 2,000, 25, 5,000 people that are going to apply for this job. They're going to take the first 500 and that's it. So if your profile is not ready and all that stuff is ready, when these jobs hit, you need to be able to click a button and send your information over to them. Okay. Same concept with the VEEP. They're getting probably 1,500 veterans, and they're screening your profile, they're screening your resumes, they're screening all of that stuff to see who would be the best candidate, and they're only going to interview about 150 out of the 500 or 1,000 that apply. So you need to be very thorough with your resume. You need to be very proactive in trying to get anything that you can get that's going to help you. So your CDL, if you have a CDL, you have first aid, CPR, if you have any OSHA courses, anything along those lines that's going to give you an edge of why they would take you into this industry is going to help. Okay. Okay, down at the bottom there, I've got my name and number. But I just wanted to go over briefly before we get into questions and answers with everyone is pay. So, and I know this is a huge, issue for a lot of people because you come out and you're making a set amount of money now. But you have, if you're still living in the barracks or if you're married, you're getting a stipend, so on and so forth. So you don't really know what your actual value is when those things, your dental, your medical, all those things. So when all this stuff comes into it, that's what comes into our wages. So as I would told you, as a union member, and I'm down south, so I make $52 an hour on in the south. I am at $65 an hour in the north, and I am about $72 an hour on the west coast. A lot of those are because of cost of living, which you guys are all well aware of. If you have COLA, whenever you go to a different base, the COLA rates are different. It's the same concept here. Whatever your cost of living is going to be, it's going to be, different. Now, the jobs that I didn't talk about getting in here, guys, if you and girls, is a groundman and a helper or an equipment operator. Okay. Those are three entry level positions within the union that you would start and wait to be able to go get an apprenticeship. So, as a groundman, you're probably going to make around $30 to $35 an hour. But for the whole year, is if you come into one of those positions for the whole year, you're going to make 100K your first year. And that's pretty much without batting an eye. You're probably going to be begging for time off more than you're going to be begging for more work. So this is, the glamour of what we do is the money side of it. Most guys across the industry, if you look out there for what we make for pay, if you Google it, it's going to tell you an average journeyman lineman makes $70,000 a year. Most journeyman linemen, journeyman cable splicers, substation guys make $70,000 before June. It's just the reality. That's what we do. And then if you work storms, I know guys that chase storms will make upwards of $400,000 to $500,000 working 8 months a year. So there's money to be had out there. And like I said, I'm giving you the money lastly, with the ups and downs. It is very hard work. You're working, if you go on a storm, you're working 16 to 18 hours on with 6 hours off, 8 hours off, depending on what you're getting. Wherever you go, now you're at double time. So if you're at 65 an hour, double that, that's what you're making on storm. So that's why guys want to do the storm, but it's not consistent. Okay. But like I said, you're gone. If you go on a storm, you could be gone for a month. You could be gone for 2 months. So if you have a family and kids and all that stuff back at home, you can't go to them and say, hey, I have a wedding. I need to get back. Your life gets put on hold. But that's the reason why we get paid that way. And additionally, it's very dangerous. Unfortunately, this year, collectively, we've had 26 fatalities across the industry, which is absurd to have in our industry with all the safety and everything that we have going on. And those are the only ones that we've heard about. Injuries are, they're probably in the thousands of how many injuries that we have every year. So it is not, it's not something that everyone, it's not made for everyone. When everyone says, oh, anyone can do it, this is not that case. Not everyone can climb poles. If you're afraid of heights, you're never going to climb a pole. Not everyone's, some people are claustrophobic. If you're claustrophobic, you're not going in a 4x4 hole that's dark with no lighting. It's just not going to be for you. So you have to navigate your way around the industry and see what works well for you. But any one of those jobs that I told you will make you, even the meter reading, your meter readers make about $85,000 to $95,000 a year. And that's one of the easiest jobs that we have out there. Great job, but you're still making good money. So with that, I'll leave you guys for any questions and answers. Like I said, my name and number is at the bottom. Feel free to call me anytime. I did hear Derek talk about LinkedIn. I did not put my LinkedIn
I
out
I
there.
posted it in the chat, Mark.
Okay, thank you, Val. So you guys reach out to me. I have a pretty good network on LinkedIn. I've connected with a lot of people, and here's what I do. This is the reason why I'm here for everybody. Um, it doesn't matter whether I'm helping you or I'm helping me or like none of that matters. Money doesn't drive me. What drives me is getting people that want to be in this industry into the industry and give you a career. So I find jobs every single day, and I have lists of people that I know that are looking for work, and whenever something hits, I send it out to them. So if you want to join that network and find out some more information, like I said, reach out to me, reach out to my LinkedIn, and we can get the ball rolling. So with that, I'll take any questions that we have out there.
All right, real quick, just fantastic presentation. I think you answered a lot of the questions people might ask. So these will probably be very personal niche questions. If anybody, needs to get up until the next presentation, that's fine. And with that being said, just go ahead and raise your hands if you have any specific questions for Mark, and I'll call on people.